How's it going, everybody? My cup of tea here, back in the reaction video, and today we're here with something a little bit different because it's time to learn about the art director Ken Sugimori. Lifestory, Pokemon art director. Kind of said that weird, but yes, this has been requested quite a bit. I know I've been slacking on it, but I'm finally here with it. I believe that this is from the channel called Did You Know Gaming, which I feel like I watched some of their stuff way in the past before I even made YouTube stuff. Maybe, I don't know. I can't remember. But this should be interesting. We get to hear, possibly we get to hear like how he came to like making these iconic Pokemon designs that we know and love today. I'm curious. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. Also, I have a lot of videos planned for today, so get used to seeing this attire right here because you're gonna see this for quite a bit of videos I'm about to upload. Alright, let's get it. Let's get it.
There's a war raging in the world right now between popular characters. There are more monsters and cute girls than you can shake a stick at. I don't have such
We need proper quality for this. We need proper quality for this. There we go. 1080p. Deserves respect.
There's a war raging in the world right now between popular characters. There are more monsters and cute girls than you can shake a stick at. I don't have such lofty dreams of creating something that will last for perpetuity.
Okay.
Ken Sugimori, 2017. Pikachu is one of the most recognized fictional characters in the world, but someday it'll be completely forgotten, along with every other Pokemon. Ken was a lonely kid growing up, only able to make friends by drawing manga. Despite his parents' protests, he ran away from home to pursue his dream of becoming a manga author.
Real quick, sorry, this is bothering me. Is this, what's his name, Nabu, I think? Hold on, who's talking right now? It's Nasu. Nasu, my fault, not Nabu, Nasu. I'm like, this sounds very familiar. I think he has like the mob profile picture, because we watched a couple of his videos before. So I was like, this sounds way too familiar, this voice. It was bothering me. I had to understand it. I had to figure out who it was. Okay, sorry, no more.
Despite his parents' protests, he ran away from home to pursue his dream of becoming a manga author, a mangaka. But life had other plans for him. One fateful day, he skipped school to meet up with a kid named Satoshi, which ultimately led to Ken becoming art director of the biggest multimedia franchise in human history, Pokémon. Deciding to play hooky changed Ken's life, and to some extent the whole world. But even after all those billions and billions of dollars, he still wanted to be a mangaka.
Oh, wow,
now closing in on 60 years of age, Sugimori's finally had to lay that dream to rest. He's far outlived his usefulness, and his art was never even that good to begin with. Or at least that's the way he sees it. Those are his words, not ours. By the end of this video,
hold on, man. He must not know about Mob, the original, not Mob, my fault, Saitama, the original One Punch mangaka? Yes, that was terrible. His drawings were terrible, but the story was good, so people liked it. And then it finally got picked up from like a better artist. But
at least that's the way he sees it. Those are his words,
but I feel
not
like
ours.
Great.
By the end of this video, we expect you'll see things differently. This is Ken Sugimori.
Let's hear his life story. Let's hear it from the
For a
perspective of
man
Ken.
who drew all this and much more, it's shocking how little of his life story is known to the public. Look him up on Wikipedia, and everything he ever did is condensed down to a couple paragraphs. Short as it is, it's still got some errors. Even his place of birth is incorrect. Search the internet in Japanese and you won't find much more than in English. The man's practically a ghost. The only way we could learn more about Sugimori was by buying some old Japanese books, translating a few hundred relevant pages, and piecing the puzzle together. So let's start at the very beginning, long before Pokemon. Ken Sugimori was born January 27, 1966 on the island of Kyushu in Fukuoka's downtown Hakata district. His father loved manga, so he grew up surrounded by the classics. But his dad also worked for the TV channel NHK, which required the Sugimori family to move around a lot, to Nagano, Nagasaki, Yamanashi, Tokyo. And as a result, Ken was constantly switching schools and had a hard time making friends. He was good at drawing though, and realized sketching manga was a good way to start conversations with other students. The 70s were a golden age for manga and anime, and Ken could draw popular characters better than anyone, especially Gundam. And when other kids caught a glimpse, it was an instant icebreaker. He filled up entire notebooks with manga and drew them in the margins of his notes during class. At one school, he made a group of friends where he'd draw one page, then another kid drew the next, and so on, till they had a 16-page story. They made hundreds over several years, and Ken still treasures and keeps them to this day. These formative experiences making friends with his art left Ken dreaming of becoming a professional mangaka when he grew up. In his mid-teens, he found a new obsession: arcades. Back then,
man, well, I know Japan has some wild arcades over there, but I miss the arcades over here. before everything is like, swipe. I miss you put a coin in. I miss that. I mean, there's probably still some of that exists out there, but yeah, it's different now. These arcades, it's different.
No one knew who made video games. Sugimori recounted in the 2000 book Game Maestro, Volume 4. I was obsessed, so I'd research and investigate. And I'd say, Galaxian was made by a company called Namco. The original Space Invaders was made by Taito, and the other Space Invader-like games are all copies, trivia like that. It was an era where I really wanted to share this kind of knowledge, but no one understood. One day, now living in Tokyo, he popped into a magazine shop and his gaze happened to wander to a video game magazine. It was amateur, homemade, and stapled together. A doujinshi. He'd never seen anything like that. Back in those days, strategy guides, gaming magazines, internet forums, none of this existed yet. This doujinshi Ken held in his hands was Game Freak issue number 1. He bought a copy and pored over its pages. It was full of interests and opinions he shared, and contained gaming trivia even he didn't know. I thought it was amazing, he recollected, but while the contents were good, the visuals were lacking. There was no way to screenshot games back then, so all the pictures were hand-drawn, poorly. Game Freak was made by some kid a little younger, Satoshi Tajiri.
That's his soon-to-be friend that started the entire thing.
Sugimori mailed him a letter and some illustrations saying he'd like to make the doujinshi's artwork. Satoshi wrote back, saying welcome aboard. The two high schoolers exchanged letters for a while, until one day Satoshi invited Ken to an arcade trade show. It was for industry insiders only. Satoshi spent a lot of money collecting arcade circuits.
Satoshi, hold on, is that why he's called Ash? I know in Japan he's called Satoshi. Is that why? Did you name it off your friend? Or no? Let me stop.
So he was on the invite list.
We're gonna figure this out
together. Secure Ken one extra ticket. It was on a weekday though, so Ken dressed up in his school uniform and told his parents he was off to class, then skipped school, ditched his clothes in a train station locker, and ran off to the trade show. Problem was, he still had no idea what Satoshi looked like. He'd have to find him amongst the crowds. All the trade booths had sign-in sheets. When Ken signed his name, he saw Satoshi's a few lines above. I figured he must be close and looked around, and sure enough, there was this tall, lanky guy at the next booth over writing the name, Tajiri. The two immediately hit it off and became the best of friends, spending countless meals and train rides together, talking video games and staying out late nights at the arcade. In '84, 18-year-old Ken graduated high school, 1 year earlier than Satoshi, so he had to step into adult life.
No! I was very invested. I don't want this. We're not talking about the Braves baseball. We're talking about Pokemon, darn it. Pokemon! Camera. Pokemon! And we're back.
Life all on his own. He had no plans to attend college and still determined to become a mangaka. But his mom and dad didn't approve of him lazing around the house drawing all day. So he ran away from home and rented the first cheap apartment that he could find in Machida, the same neighborhood where Satoshi still lived with his parents. Satoshi loved having his friends so close and quickly moved in his computer and most of his stuff. Before he knew it, Ken's little apartment was the new Game Freak.
Did he make this? Did Ken make this? Basically talking about his life? Someone make this, I don't know.
Office space. Money was tight with Ken working part-time, and Satoshi still on his parents' allowance. They mostly ate cheap ramen noodles and spent half their money on video games. Arcades, of course, but eventually they bought a Nintendo Famicom and got really into Super Mario. And Ken especially liked Princess Peach. Even to this day, if you look at his Twitter page, you'll see he's constantly buying Peach memorabilia. His favorite Nintendo game, however, was the original Metroid. Ken's art greatly improved Game Freak, and their doujinshi became some of the world's first strategy guides, with a cult readership of thousands. One issue explaining how to get 10 million points in Xevious was especially influential. We could probably make an entire documentary about these two teenagers' lives in the Xevious scene, which is very dramatic and very long. Tajiri basically wrote an entire book about it. That's still for another time, so for now we'll keep it short and just say Xevious's significance cannot be overstated. Tajiri's been reclusive from the public eye since the late 90s, but he reappeared in 2015 to interview Xevious creator Masanobu Endo. In that interview, Sugimori and Tajiri agree, quote, Pokemon wouldn't exist without Xevious.
Remember that, Xevious is why we got greatness, it's why we all got greatness, Xevious, remember that. Because I never heard that game until today.
Game Freak never would have made their first game without it, and the mysteries surrounding Xevious greatly influenced the mysteries cultivated for Pokemon. Sugimori said, "I think it's important how Endo kept the mysteries ambiguous. That's why when I get asked questions about Pokemon, I try not to answer too clearly. What I learned and value from my Xevious experience is how keeping things vague can make it more enjoyable."
Yeah.
After meeting Xevious's creator as teenagers, the Game Freak guys realized the legend was just flesh and bones, just like themselves. So together with some friends, they started making their own game. All their favorite games centered around one verb: digging, shooting, jumping. So they decided to make a Famicom game based on flipping. Tajiri hired a few more guys, rented an apartment to use as an office, and asked Namco, the same company who published Xevious, to publish their first game. Namco agreed, and 3 years later, Quinty hit store shelves, selling 200,000 copies. A massive win for the team. Every month hit store shelves, selling 200,000 copies.
Ooh, that is good.
A massive
Especially
win
back
for the
then,
team.
too. That's really
Every
good
month,
for a small
Sugimori
team.
published a 2-page Quinty manga, but his responsibilities at Game Freak left little time to pursue his dreams of becoming a real mangaka. After Quinty, Game Freak started cooking up their next project, a little game called Capsule Monsters. They figured it could be made in about 6 months, since it was for the Game Boy. The idea for Pokemon was born when Sugimori and Tajiri were playing Dragon Quest II, and Sugimori came into possession of not one, but 2 rare hats. Tajiri desperately wanted one, but there was no way to get his hands on Sugimori's extra, thus burning the idea of trading into their minds. Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, those were the kind of games everyone was playing back in the 80s. The orthodox fantasy RPGs were what was popular back in those days, Sugimori recollected, but there was also the
I need to play Final Fantasy. I have not played except for 15. I have not played a Final Fantasy game except for 15 and like a teeny bit of 14, the online one. I think my friend told me I should play 8 or 4 that like really plays Final Fantasy, so I should start with that. I know 7 and I think 10 are like, you know, like really great. People recommend that. I know 16's on the PS. I could play 16. I don't have 16, but I could get 16. But I need to get into that. Now, Dragon Quest, I think it was 9 or 10 that came out on the PS4. I enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that. I can see why people like Dragon Quest, but I gotta play these pixel art
RPGs were what was popular back in those days, Sugimori recollected. But there was also this group of young, ambitious developers who were creating RPGs that took a different path. Our Pokemon Red and Green were developed as part of that trend. It was basically a counterculture movement. The design document imagined a world with over 200 fantasy monsters, most of which could be caught in capsules, battled against each other, and traded with friends over a link cable. Tajiri took it to Ape Inc., the Nintendo-fused studio which just released a popular RPG called Mother. He showed it to producer Tsunekazu Ishihara, who along with Shigeru Miyamoto liked Capsule Monsters enough to fund it and sign on as producers. In the beginning, I just liked to draw kaiju-like monsters, but in a more cartoonish, exaggerated style, Sugimori remembers. But I realized I'd never drawn monsters like that before. I was honestly pretty lost, but I managed to create about 20 or 30 different designs. But their 6-month game plan was dragging on longer than expected, and after spending all their Quincy money on dev equipment.
Sorry, real quick, that's crazy. 6-month game plan? You know, nowadays, game studios be taking like 8 years, 10 years. If you're GTA, you're taking like 12 years. I mean, really, it's like 3 to 4. That's like the range for AAA games, I thought. And some people taking like 8 years, 10 years, 13 years. Kingdom Hearts. Man, 6 months. Times have changed
The game
drastically.
plan was dragging on longer than expected, and after spending all their Quincy money on dev equipment, they ran out of cash. So with some help from Ishihara and Miyamoto, it was decided Game Freak would make some smaller games to get some dollars back in their coffers. Half a year later, they released Yoshi on both Famicom and Game Boy, selling 500,000 copies on its first day. Game Freak launched another game around the same time, Jerry Boy for Super Famicom, which won Sugimori an award for character design. He made a Jerry Boy manga as well, plus a few more for Valkyrie no Boken and Shinmaido o Sawagase Shimasu. In 1992, Sugimori directed his first game, Magical Taruru Tokun, for Sega Genesis, based on a popular manga of the same name. Capumon was now completely on ice for about 3 years as Game Freak focused on making games like Mario and Wario and Pulseman, the latter of which saw the now 28-year-old Sugimori returning to the director's chair. Pulseman was a direct challenge to Sonic the Hedgehog, with Sugimori saying, if Sonic can move at the speed of sound, then Pulseman will move at the speed of light. Now with a fistful of yen, Game Freak dove headfirst back into Capsule Monsters, except now they were calling it Pocket Monsters, due to trademark complications. Unfortunately, Pocket Monsters found itself knee-deep in development hell. Crunch was a serious problem, with guys sleeping at their desks until all 3 programmers quit the same day.
Ooh, no.
It looked like it was going to be the end of Pokemon until their composer, Junichi Masuda, vowed to learn programming and pick up the pieces. Not long after...
Oh, that's dope. Hold on, wait a minute. Applaud that. Hold on, let's go back to that.
Composer, Junichi Masuda, vowed to learn...
The composer said, no, we're going to make this game happen. I'm going to learn programming. That's not easy. Programming is not easy. I respect that because they just had that much faith and they worked that hard in the game. He's like, our programmers left. I got you guys. I'll pick up the slack too. Hold on, what's your name again? Sorry. I know I heard his name before. Junichi Masuda?
It looked like it was going to be the end of Pokemon until their composer, Junichi Masuda, vowed to learn programming and pick up the pieces. Not long after, their hardware crashed, and they thought they'd lost years of work, the entire project. But again, Masuda promised to learn a new operating system to save the day.
This man's crazy. Masuda is great. This man might be the GOAT. He might be... Hold on, he learned... What the heck?
At the time, Sugimori was basically art director, but he wasn't officially a Game Freak employee. He was still drawing manga, submitting to publishers, and hoping to become a professional mangaka. But he could see that Pocket Monsters was falling apart, and the only way it could survive was for everyone to pull together and give 100%. That was the day he gave up his mangaka dreams and joined Game Freak full-time. It was the only way to help his friends achieve their dreams.
Respect on him too. Respect on Ken too. That's some true respect right there. You know your friend's struggling. You see the composer put all that work, the hard work trying to learn new stuff. And you've seen this from like you're watching this happen because you're helping them too, but not fully. You're like, you know what? Hold on now. They really suffering right now. They helped me. Time for me to give back. I like this. I'm liking this story.
They got some new programmers, including Shigeki Morimoto, who also contributed a few designs like Mankey and Tauros. Another employee, Motofumi Fujiwara, came up with some Eevee forms, but something was still missing. We need more cute ones, Sugimori realized. And since I was designing from the perspective of a man, I asked female artist Atsuko Nishida to join. Atsuko went on to make Pikachu, Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle, and dozens more.
Oh, she gave us the iconic ones. Okay, yeah.
Everyone had their own specialties and design philosophies. Then in the end, Sugimori revised everyone's creations and gave them watercolor artwork, thus unifying all their disparate designs into one consistent encyclopedia of 150. By the time Pokemon hit store shelves in 1996, it'd been over half a decade since Sugimori sketched the first monster. Game Freak was hoping maybe they could sell 1 million copies, since that's how many they'd need for trading between friends to be feasible. Sales were slow, at first, but gradually picked up as word of mouth spread, especially after rumors surrounding a secret 151st Pokemon. Sales doubled, then doubled again, then again. Usually a game's sales drop off after the first couple weeks, but Pokemon only gained momentum, and finally reached #1 on Japanese sales charts more than a year after launch.
So it wasn't like an instant hit. Oh, I had to like pick up some steam.
Actually, Pokemon fever spread westward and sold a total of nearly 50 million copies worldwide, making it the best-selling game of all time. It wasn't until 1999 that the reality of it all caught up to Sugimori. I was on the Eurostar train from Paris to London. I decided to get up and go get a drink and walked up to the concession car. On my way up there, 2 kids were playing Pokemon with the link cable stretched across the aisle. As I approached, they lifted the cable for me to walk underneath. That's when it hit me how popular Pokemon had become. I never thought it'd be this huge, or dreamed.
And he just sitting there like, yeah, I made that happen. But he didn't say anything.
Someday it'd be an anime, or there'd be a movie. Sugimori drew some one-off Pokemon manga, and the entire team immediately got to work on Pokemon 2. Sugimori made a Pokemon based on his childhood pet bird who liked to stand on one foot, and a few more designers were hired to bring in fresh monster ideas. Just like Gen 1, Sugimori redrew and unified all the new monsters added for Johto. The pressure to live up to fans' expectations was enormous, but after a lot of hard work and a 2-year delay, Gen 2 took the world by storm all over again and sold another 30 million copies. Proving Pokemon was much more than just a fad. But it wasn't without cost. Tajiri didn't have the stomach for it anymore. Even though Gold and Silver's credits identify him as the director, he'd actually relinquished the director's chair to Masuda mid-development. Then Tajiri faded into reclusive obscurity for the rest of his days, leaving Sugimori as Game Freak's most senior public-facing figure. Unfortunately, he was feeling a little burnt out too. After Gold and Silver were finished, he told a Japanese publication, "There's really not much I can't do with Pokemon. As a world, it's fairly open. That said,
we're gonna put in Red Hulk." It's just, oh wow, okay. I didn't expect, so I'm pretty sure that was his best friend, right? Tajiri? Pretty sure. Satoshi? Yeah, that was like his best friend that like started everything, or got him into it. Because he was the, Game Informer? Was it you call it Game Informer back then? Basically, he made that, or Ken made the call. Sugimori made the call to him, and all that happened. Yeah. I didn't know he left. Oh, wow, okay. You know, I can imagine trying to get burned out, trying to make all these Pokemon, trying to relive to the hype of the first one. Yeah, I can see why you get burnt out. Back.
Yeah, sometimes I feel tired of it. I'm still young, and there's still a lot more I want to do with pixel art. At this point, he was 34 years old. When asked which was his favorite of all of his creations, it wasn't a Pokemon. He said Pulseman from the old Sega game he directed. Over the next few years, the company pushed forward with more and more Pokemon games, releasing them at a quicker and quicker pace. Sugimori solidified his techniques and studied biology every day, like researching real-life birds' skeletal and wing structures to make bird Pokemon. And he'd always use a manga G-pen to outline Pokemon, saying, "A guy who still uses a G-pen, there's not many of us left in the gaming industry. I don't use tools to draw circles either. It's always freehand. I just don't like lines to be too neat. When you draw on paper, the lines look kind of rough when you look really close. I actually really like that. Maybe you could say I have some kind of line fetish. Most manga artists are very careful to clean up their lines, but I actually think it looks cool." Even in the modern digital age, he colors on a tablet like everyone else, but he still outlines with a G-pen because he likes the sensation of drawing on paper. Another design philosophy he follows is that Pokemon shouldn't be too cute or too cool. Quote, "For example, Luxray would have been even cooler if its head was a bit smaller and its eyes narrower. If a Pokemon seems too cool, I might try to give it a little something to make it uncool. Because, in short, if a Pokemon is too cool, it won't capture a player's heart.
Okay, so he knew, because I know some designs be like a little out there. I mean, I'm just saying, Mewtwo probably the coolest. Same with Lucario. I mean, they're just cool, but they're not cute, though. They're not... but Lucario might be too cool for some people. I don't know. Hey, listen. But I didn't say what he's getting at.
Pokemon created by other designers, he'd revised it to be less cute or less cool, believing it made the Pokemon more memorable. He felt the same way about the series' human protagonists and purposely made them uncool as well. Well, at least in his eyes. During a Gen 3 promotional tour, Nintendo Dream Magazine...
Here he is. There's that menace right there. That darn landmine menace Wobbuffet right there. Get out of here.
asked Game Freak how they felt about Nintendo. Masuda gave the kind of answer you would expect. It's a company we can learn a lot from in terms of style and the creation process. They're always like a role model for us. Then it was Sugimori's turn. He said, "Actually, I prefer Sega."
Alright, I don't know why I clapped. I mean, Nintendo was cool back then. But, wow, okay. I didn't expect him to say it right then and there. Alright, I like that.
After everyone laughed, he caught himself and pivoted, adding, "Nintendo is really a role model." Truth was, he's been Team Sega since his teenage years, and the Sega Genesis is his favorite console of all time.
Oh, wow.
That's why his Twitter handle is Super32X. He named himself after a Sega Genesis add-on. And when Wii Virtual Console came out, the first games he bought weren't Nintendo. They were old Sega games. Even though he still had the original cartridges and consoles, he just loved them so much he wanted to buy them again. He's always been more of a Sega fan.
Sega got my Yakuza. I guess it's Like a Dragon now. They got that, so I guess I'm a Sega fan too, even though I didn't really play Sonic growing up.
Gen 4 was in development. Sugimori felt an urge to return to Game Freak's roots, back to action games like Pulseman. Finally, make some pixel art that wasn't Pokemon for a change. He jumped back in the director's chair and made Drill Dozer for Game Boy Advance and drew a manga for it as well. Drill Dozer got review scores on par with Pokemon, low 80s, and Nintendo Power nominated it for GBA Game of the Year. Unfortunately, the sales were much lower than Pokemon, and it was the last game Sugimori ever directed. Over the coming years, he would gradually scale back his involvement in the Pokemon franchise. After serving as series art director from the very beginning, he gave that job up to his junior, Takao Unno, for Heart Gold and Soul Silver. By the time Sun and Moon rolled around, Sugimori was mostly just supervising other people's designs as, quote, an observer, and the only designs he directed were the Alolan forms of Old Kanto Pokemon. To be clear, he didn't design them all himself, he just directed
yeah.
their designs. While that was going on, he made the cover art for all 3 Sega 3D Classic collections. The collections didn't even include any Game Freak games, he drew them purely out of passion. Around the same time, he also published an art book, Ken Sugimori Works, which only devoted around 5% of its pages to Pokemon content. The rest was Quinty, Pulseman, manga, and other projects from his decades-long career. He's been explicit over the years how thankful he is for Pokemon's success, but sometimes it's apparent. He never wanted his whole life to amount to just being the Pokemon guy.
I can feel that.
Sugimori Works includes a 5-page interview where he gets pretty down on himself. He says he wasn't good enough to be a mangaka and only able to make a living with art because in the 80s, quote, "It's kind of embarrassing to admit actually, but video games were a brand new industry back then, and standards were lower than in other fields. Both the games themselves and their packaging."
Sorry, my phone just went off. Phone, shut up. I'm learning about Ken Sugimori right now. Okay, it's not stopping. I gotta turn it. Hold on 1 second. Back. I put it on vibrate this time. Alright, let's go back a little bit because I forgot what's going on.
And standards were lower than in other fields. Both the games themselves and their packaging were poorly drawn. It was only when standards were so low that someone like me could get in. He goes on to say he never thought his art was any good, and he lacks confidence because he didn't go to art school, that all the younger designers at Game Freak did go to art school, and he feels inadequate. I'm worried I'll outlive my usefulness. All I have over the younger artists is experience. One of the interviewer's final questions is if he still wants to draw manga. He basically says, no, he's given up on it. Quote, "I drew a promotional manga that was included with Drill Dozer, and I also drew a manga as a pre-order bonus for Pokemon Mystery Dungeon in
If this is what he drew, this is great. What? This can still pass for today. This can still pass for today.
2007. That was the last one. He used to draw at home in his free time, but not anymore.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is..."
Shut up, Scarecrow. I don't want this. It's getting sad now. No, I feel like, well, probably not nowadays, because he's kind of like in the 60s. I feel like around there when he like wanted to take a step back from Pokemon, around Gen 4, I think he could have, I don't know what the criteria is to be a mangaka though. Like, it must be hard to be like a mangaka, like, you know, get it out there. So I don't know the criteria, but I feel like his art could have worked.
That was the last one. He used to draw at home in his free time, but not anymore. So where'd everybody end up? Atsuko Nishida made lots more Pokemon, but left Game Freak to become a freelancer over a decade ago, saying she wanted to work from home and do something other than Pokemon. She's been doing art for other series ever since, but occasionally contributes to other than Pokemon. She's been doing art for other series ever since, but occasionally contributes to Pokemon here and there on a freelance basis. After taking over directorial duties for Gen 2, Junichi Masuda went on to direct most of the mainline games up to the present day. Satoshi Tajiri's mostly been MIA since the late 90s, though staff say he still hung around the Game Freak office as recently as 2016, playing old arcade games and imparting wisdom to the younger devs. As for Ken Sugimori himself, he still lives in Tokyo, still friends with Tajiri, still working in Game Freak, mainly as a supervisor. He's got a Switch and has an affinity for Mario Kart and Animal Crossing, but mostly sticks to older games. Loves cats. He painted his parents' cat after it passed away a few years back. Doesn't draw much otherwise, certainly no manga, but he likes going to art exhibits where they have originals of his favorite childhood manga, standing real close and staring at them. I don't have such lofty dreams of creating something that will last for perpetuity. The words of a man rapidly approaching 60. It's been a long time since that teenager ran away from home, hoping to become a mangaka.
Did he go back to his
Most
parents?
artists would kill to be Ken Sugimori, to have their art and characters famous all around the world, made into TV shows, movies, toys, to be the Pokemon guy. But it wasn't the life he wanted, at least not for his entire life. A wise man once said, "Sometimes you can't escape success." Sugimori doesn't hate Pokemon. He still occasionally posts new Pokemon art on his Twitter, just for fun. But he also posts stuff like Pulseman, and that's kind of the point. The masses never played Pulseman or Drill Dozer, read his comics, or really had any interest in his creations outside Pokemon. But there's so much more to Ken Sugimori, a whole lifetime's worth, just waiting for his fans to discover, to read, play, and enjoy. To us, Ken Sugimori is much more than just the Pokemon guy. And if you're into creatures and cards and all that, check out Did You Know Gaming's new game, Do You Know Gaming. It's available to pre-order right now, and you can even create your own card for the game. Link in the description. Or you can click this other video. I've been Nasu. If you want to hear more from me, you can hop over to my channel. I've done videos talking about Pokemon, among other games and related topics, so check that out if it interests you. We bought a lot of books from Japan and had them translated, but we also leaned on work the community did before we got here. So a huge special thanks to High-Res Pokemon, Helix Chamber, Glitterberry, Catstorm, Trickness, Shmuplations, CFK, and Shinji no Takari for all their contributions. And of course, thank you for watching. See you next time.
Oh, I just realized probably all this on the side is like all his stuff he made, maybe? Ken Sugimori? Well, not all of it. Well, maybe. Actually, I don't know. No, that's not. I see Sonic right there. Never mind. Ignore what I said. Ignore what I said. That was good. That was really good. Okay. I didn't know he did not like... Well, he likes Pokemon, but I didn't know he was just like... I don't want this to be my entire life, and he felt like his art wasn't that good. I didn't know that. Because I feel like back then, like in the 80s, when video games was still, you know, a new concept, people didn't really like it like that. I feel like they would not have tried out, well, we've seen it, they had not tried out his actual games, Ken's games, that's not Pokemon related. Because I feel like most people wouldn't have given that a chance. But if it was like nowadays, I feel like more people possibly would have gave that a chance, especially since video games is more popular in the media. I mean, shoot, some starting to cost $80 now, some of these games. But Ken Sugimori said it himself. He felt like he got in luckily because the art for the game covers back then weren't the best, so his looked passable in his eyes. But no, I think he just downplayed himself too much. No, dude, that's... Remember, you attracted 50 million people with the first game, and it's still growing probably, or probably more than that, but that's an achievement right there. I feel like people still look fondly back on the old Pokemon games as well. So, come on, Sugimori. Come on. Now it does suck that the things you worked on that you feel passionate about did not translate well with the audience. Because again, I have never even heard of the games he made besides Pokemon. I'm glad Ken Sugimori and his friend, is it Tajiri Satoshi? I probably messed up his name. But his best, I'm glad they're still friends, they're so close to each other. And I hope you went to go see your parents again, Ken Sugimori. I know they didn't want you to draw, but they probably trying to see what's best for you. They didn't understand you. But I hope maybe you guys reconnected, you know, back then. But what do I know? I don't know your parents. I don't know. What do I know? But thank you for requesting this. Honestly, I'll be down if you guys request something more like this as well, like life stories of certain artists, writers of like our childhoods. Maybe like I was gonna say Sonic, but I never watched or play Sonic like that. But yeah, just throw some stuff out there. I'll be interested in looking to their backstories. I'll be down for that. This is cool. But alright, I'm gonna head out of here. Some more videos I want to check out today, so hope you enjoy my reaction. And thank you for watching. MyCupOfTea's out of here. Deuces everybody. And you know, sometimes you just gotta follow your dream if you're just that passionate. And I can't believe this all happened. Pokemon came to be because of that one game I just forgot about. Zatari? Vesperia? Not Vesperia, that's something else. I forgot the game, but it all came because of that game, and also because they play hooky. Because Ken played hooky, Pokemon came to be. Remember that. It would have been an accident. It's basically an accident, not an accident, but a leap of faith, if you will. If he went to school that day, Pokemon would not have happened. I don't know, I'm trying to say the message. Go to school. The message is go to school, but sometimes you might have to skip school to chase your dreams. I'm gonna stop talking.